On a rain-soaked American highway, one exhausted truck driver made a decision that would quietly rewrite his entire life. Years later, during a routine traffic stop, a police officer looked at his license and froze. Not because of a violation, but because she was staring at the man who had once pulled her from a crushed car and vanished into the storm. He never knew who she was. She never forgot who he was. What followed was not a fairy tale rescue, but a collision of guilt, gratitude, fear, and an unexpected second chance that neither of them was ready for. Stay with this story, because one small choice on the side of the road will lead to a moment that changes everything. He almost didn't stop. That is the part Ethan Walker never admits out loud, not even to himself. Because in America, we love the clean version of a hero, the one where the good guy always pulls over, always runs toward the smoke, always makes the right call without hesitation. But the truth is, on the night that changed everything, Ethan saw the hazard lights flickering ahead on Interstate 81, and his first instinct was to keep driving. He was already late. His eyelids burned from 2 straight nights of short sleep. His back ached in the familiar way that told him he had been living in a driver's seat more than in his own house. And his phone had been vibrating all day with missed calls from Megan, his younger sister, the only family he had left, asking about medical bills and a newborn she was trying to keep alive on pure stubbornness. Ethan wasn't careless. He wasn't heartless. He was just tired in the kind of way that makes you start bargaining with your conscience. Someone else will stop, he told himself, hands tightening on the wheel as the rain came down in sheets. There were always other cars, other people, other good Samaritans. Then he saw the vehicle. Not just a car on the shoulder. A sedan half folded in on itself, resting on its side like a crushed soda can. Steam hissing into the storm. A faint, frantic movement behind the shattered glass. And in that second, Ethan's body moved before his excuses could. He pulled over, threw on his hazards. Ran into the rain like a man chasing a debt. Inside the wreck, a woman was strapped in awkwardly, upside down, blood slicking her temple and soaking her uniform collar. A police badge flashed under the broken dome light. She was conscious, barely, eyes wide with the kind of fear that isn't screaming because it's too busy trying to survive. Ethan didn't think about liability. He didn't think about how the world treats truck drivers who touch a scene like this. He didn't think about whether the car could explode. He thought about one thing. If I keep driving, she dies. He braced his shoulder against the bent door frame, planted his boots in the mud, and forced the twisted metal apart just enough to reach her seatbelt latch. It wouldn't release. He had to cut it with his pocket knife, hands shaking so hard he nearly slipped. The belt snapped free, and her body sagged into his arms, limp and heavier than he expected. He dragged her out, inch by inch, rain mixing with blood until he couldn't tell where either ended. He pressed his palm to her side when he saw the bleeding, firm and hard, the way his mother had once pressed a towel to his father's wound before the ambulance came years ago. He stayed on the ground with her, holding pressure, talking to her, telling her to keep her eyes open. "What's your name, officer? Stay with me. Keep breathing. Look at me." Her lips moved. No sound. Then finally a whisper. Laura, it should have been a full circle moment right then. It should have been the beginning of a love story. It should have been the kind of scene people later dramatize with swelling music and perfect timing. But the real beginning was uglier, because when the sirens finally grew louder and the paramedics arrived, Ethan saw something in the headlights that spooked him. A second vehicle, parked farther down the shoulder. Lights off. Too still, too patient. He noticed it the way you notice a shadow that doesn't move like it should. And then the fear hit him, cold and sharp. Someone was watching. Ethan did not know what he had stepped into. He did not know if Laura's crash was an accident or if it had been made to look like one. He only knew he had a sister at home who relied on him, and a baby who needed formula, and a life that could not afford trouble. So he did what he always did when something got too complicated. He helped, and then he disappeared. He left before the questions started, before anyone could take a statement, before anyone could write down his plate number. He drove into the storm with the taste of adrenaline and blood in his mouth, telling himself he had done enough. And for 5 years, he tried to bury it. 5 years later, on a bright, dry afternoon that felt like the opposite of that night, Ethan sat behind the wheel of his truck in a slow line of vehicles along Interstate 81. Routine checkpoint. He hated these. Not because he was hiding anything, but because the uniformed authority behind them always made him feel like life could be pulled out from under you with one mistake, one wrong word. He reached for his wallet. Old leather, cracked corners. The kind of wallet a man keeps when he hasn't had the luxury of replacing things. His fingers trembled slightly as he slid his license free. Not from guilt, from exhaustion. It was the same exhaustion that lived in his bones now, the kind that came from working two lives at once. Weekdays hauling freight, weekends doing civil engineering, consulting to make ends meet. Long nights calculating loads and bridge specs at a kitchen table while Megan rocked her baby in the next room, pale and trying to smile like she wasn't scared. When it was his turn, he rolled down the window. A state trooper stepped up, professional, calm, female, mid-30s, brown hair tucked tight, eyes sharp, not unkind. "License and registration, sir." Ethan handed them over and watched her face the way you watch the weather when you've lived too long at the mercy of it. At first, it was routine. Her gaze flicked to the photo, then to his face. Then everything changed. It happened fast, like a door slamming in a quiet house. Her expression froze. The hand holding his license tightened so hard her knuckles went white. Her eyes filled, just slightly, with a wetness she fought to hide. Ethan felt the hairs rise on his arms. "Is there a problem, officer?" His voice came out hoarse, like he hadn't spoken all day. "My paperwork should be current." She swallowed, struggling to find her professional tone. When she spoke, her words came out in pieces. You are Ethan Walker." He blinked. "Yes, ma'am." Her breath shook. For a second, Ethan didn't see a trooper. He saw a woman standing at the edge of something old and painful, staring at him like he was a ghost that had just learned how to breathe. "I've been looking for you," she said, barely above a whisper. That sentence should not exist at a roadside checkpoint. Ethan's stomach dropped, because suddenly he was back in the rain, kneeling in mud, pressing his hand into a stranger's wound while headlights watched from the dark. And he realized with a quiet dread that maybe he hadn't buried that night at all. Maybe the night had been waiting. "Officer," Ethan said carefully, "I don't understand." She lifted his license slightly as if it weighed more than plastic ever should. "My name is Laura Bennett," she said. 5 years ago, right near mile marker 112, you stopped. You pulled me out of a wrecked car. You kept me alive." Ethan stared at her, searching her face, and something inside him shifted. The name Laura Ball echoed like a faint sound he had tried to forget. But his memory was fog. Rain, glass, blood. A woman's lips forming a name. He swallowed hard. "I help people when I can," he said, voice low. "I'm not sure I remember the details." Laura's eyes burned with emotion she was forcing back with every ounce of training she had. "I remember every detail," she said. "I remember the smell of gasoline, the metal, the way I thought I was going to die. And then I remember your hands, your voice, you telling me to stay awake." Behind her, another trooper glanced over, curious. Cars idled, engines hummed. The whole world kept moving, impatient and unaware that something sacred and dangerous was happening on the shoulder of the highway. Ethan felt exposed, like the air had been ripped off his skin. "I didn't do anything special," he murmured. Laura shook her head, small and fierce. "You did the one thing most people don't do. You stopped." There was a pause, and in that pause, Ethan saw the choice in her eyes. The choice between letting him go and grabbing the thread the universe had handed her. "Can you pull over to the side for a minute?" she asked, voice steadying. "There's a mobile unit up ahead. Just a few minutes, please." Ethan wanted to say no. Every instinct in him screamed to go back to being invisible, to climb into the cab, to keep driving until this conversation couldn't catch up. But the way she said please wasn't power, it was need. So he nodded. He parked where she pointed, killed the engine. The sudden silence felt heavy, like a judge's gavel. When he stepped down, his spine complained. He walked toward the shade of a few scraggly trees where Laura waited, and for the first time he really looked at her. Not as a trooper, not as a uniform, as a human being who had carried a moment of his life like a candle for 5 years. She pulled out her phone. Hand still trembling, she opened a file and turned the screen to him. A grainy photo, a mangled car, the roof crushed, the windows shattered, a scene that looked impossible to survive. "This was me," she said. "The report said if I stayed trapped 5 minutes longer, I would have bled out." Ethan's throat tightened. He read the line she highlighted. Unidentified civilian provided first aid. Truck driver, left before statement. And then he saw the name scrawled at the bottom. Ethan Walker. He stared at it like it belonged to someone else. "I didn't stay because Ethan began, and his voice broke slightly. He cleared his throat, angry at his own weakness. "I had reasons." Laura watched him closely. "You were scared," she said gently, not accusing, just naming it. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You don't know what my life was like." Then tell me, Laura said, because I didn't search for you for 5 years just to say thank you and walk away. Those words hit him harder than he expected, because Ethan didn't know what to do with being wanted for himself. Not for his work, not for his usefulness, not for what he could carry. And as he stood there on the side of an American highway, with traffic passing like waves behind them, he felt the old walls inside his chest begin to crack. A tiny crack, but enough for something dangerous to slip through. Hope. He took a slow breath, then let out a truth he rarely spoke. I'm tired, he admitted, all the time, and I'm trying to keep my sister and her baby afloat. That's it. That's my whole life right now. Laura's eyes softened, and in that softness, Ethan felt something else. Something he hadn't expected from a woman with a badge. Understanding without pity. She didn't say, I'm sorry. She didn't say, you'll be fine. She didn't try to fix him with a sentence. She simply nodded, like she recognized the kind of tired that changes a person's shape. Then let me do one thing right today, she said quietly. Let me at least know you're still out here. And Ethan, who had spent years surviving by refusing closeness, felt his defenses wobble. Because the scariest thing in the world isn't losing someone. Sometimes it's realizing someone might actually stay. Do you think Ethan should trust Laura and let her into his life after all these years? Yes or no? Ethan didn't sleep that night. He told himself it was just coincidence. Just a strange meeting dragged out of the past. Just a woman saying thank you a little too intensely. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw Laura's face the moment she recognized him. Not relief, not joy, something heavier, like a chapter of her life had finally found its missing page. He drove until well after midnight, autopilot carrying the truck through dark stretches of highway. The radio murmured, but he wasn't listening. His mind kept circling the same thought, sharp and unsettling. I left her there. He had stayed until the ambulance came, yes. He had done what he could, but he had vanished before she could even ask his name properly. At the time, it felt like survival. Now, 5 years later, it felt like abandonment wearing a reasonable excuse. His phone buzzed just after sunrise. Unknown number. His first instinct was to ignore it. Problems had a way of finding him when he was tired. But something in his chest tightened, and before he could talk himself out of it, he answered. Ethan, a familiar voice said carefully. It's Laura Bennett. I hope I'm not calling too early. He sat up straighter. No, it's fine. A pause. He could hear the highway on her end, the faint hum of movement. I've been thinking about yesterday, she said. I didn't want to put you on the spot like that. You didn't, right? He replied, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. I was wondering, she continued, choosing her words with care. Would you be willing to meet for coffee sometime? Just to talk. No pressure, no uniforms. Ethan stared at the windshield. His life had been built on not meeting people, on keeping conversations short, attachments temporary. Coffee turned into familiarity. Familiarity turned into expectations. I'm not very good at this, he said honestly. Laura's voice softened. Neither was I after the accident. We can be bad at it together. That sentence slipped past his defenses before he could block it. Okay, he said quietly. One coffee. They met 2 days later at a roadside diner that smelled like burnt coffee and fried eggs. A place where no one lingered long enough to ask questions. Laura arrived first, dressed in jeans and a simple jacket, her badge nowhere in sight. When Ethan walked in, she stood up instinctively, then stopped herself, smiling awkwardly. For a moment, they just looked at each other. No flashing lights, no rain, no blood. Just two people carrying the same memory from different ends. I don't usually come here, Laura said, sliding into the booth. But it felt neutral. Neutral is good, Ethan replied. They talked slowly at first, about work, about traffic, about the weather. Then Laura did something that surprised him. She stopped filling the silence. Most people rushed to cover the quiet, afraid of what it might reveal. Laura let it breathe, and in that space, Ethan felt something unfamiliar. Safety. I never thanked you properly, she said finally. He shook his head. You don't have to. I know, she said, but I want to explain something. I didn't look for you because I needed closure. I looked for you because I needed proof. Proof of what? That people like you exist, she said. People who do the right thing without watching to see who's looking. Ethan looked down at his coffee. If you really knew me, you wouldn't say that. Then help me know you, Laura said. He almost laughed. It came out as a breath instead. I work too much. I sleep too little. I'm raising my sister's baby while she recovers from childbirth that nearly killed her own. I don't have room for anything extra. Laura nodded. I'm not asking for extra. I'm asking for honest. Something about that settled him. Over the next weeks, they spoke more, sometimes in person, sometimes on the phone while Ethan drove through endless miles of asphalt. Laura never pushed. She asked. She listened. She remembered details he hadn't realized he'd shared. Then came the call that shattered everything. It was a Friday night. The town festival was loud and bright, music spilling across the square. Ethan had only come because Megan insisted he needed air, needed people, needed something that wasn't work or worry. Laura was there too, with colleagues, still in uniform, laughing in a way that felt rare and unguarded. They had just finished an awkward, quiet dance when Ethan's phone vibrated. Hospital. His blood went cold. By the time he answered, he already knew. Megan was bleeding, severe complications. They were rushing her into emergency surgery. The world narrowed to a tunnel. I have to go, he told Laura, voice already breaking. I'm coming with you, she said immediately. He shook his head. You don't have to. I know, she said. I want to. The drive to the hospital blurred into flashing lights and clenched fists. Laura drove, focused and calm, while Ethan stared out the window, heart hammering against his ribs. In the waiting room, time turned cruel. Ethan sat hunched forward, elbows on knees, face in his hands. He had spent his life holding things together. This time there was nothing to hold. When the tears came, they came quietly. He didn't sob, he leaked. Years of pressure escaping in silence. Laura sat beside him without a word. Her hand rested on his back, steady and warm. She didn't tell him to be strong. She didn't tell him it would be okay. She stayed. Hours passed, coffee cups emptied. The vending machine hummed. At dawn, a doctor finally approached. Megan was stable, weak but alive. Ethan's legs nearly gave out. He grabbed Laura without thinking, holding on as if she were the only solid thing left in the room. For the first time in his adult life, he let someone see him break completely. Later, when they stood outside Megan's room watching her sleep, Ethan whispered, I don't know how to let people help me. Laura met his eyes. You're doing it right now. That night didn't turn them into a couple. It turned them into something more dangerous. Two people who had seen each other at their weakest and didn't walk away. As Ethan sat beside Laura in the quiet hospital hallway, he felt the weight of a question settle deep in his chest, one that scared him more than any storm or empty road ever had. Was he finally ready to stop surviving alone and let someone truly stay in his life? Yes or no? The weeks after Megan left the hospital felt different, even though the problems didn't magically disappear. The medical bills were still there, stacked neatly on the kitchen table like quiet threats. Megan was still weak, moving slowly, learning how to trust her body again while caring for a newborn who seemed completely unaware of how close everything had come to ending. Ethan still worked long hours, still drove until his shoulders burned and his eyes stung. But one thing had changed. He was no longer doing it alone. Laura didn't move in. She didn't take over. She didn't try to fix Ethan's life the way people sometimes do when they care too much, too fast. Instead, she showed up in small, steady ways that were harder to refuse. She brought food and pretended she had cooked too much. She sat with Megan so Ethan could sleep for 3 uninterrupted hours without guilt. She listened when Ethan talked about his parents, about how losing them young had taught him that loving people meant preparing to lose them. One night, sitting on the back steps while the baby slept inside, Ethan finally said the thing he had been circling for weeks. I'm scared this will end, he admitted. That one day I'll wake up and you'll realize I'm too much work. Laura didn't answer right away. She looked up at the stars, then back at him. I almost died believing the world was random, she said quietly. And then a stranger stopped his truck in the rain. I don't think moments like that are accidents. I think they're invitations. Invitations to what? To choose differently, she said. To stay. That word landed gently and permanently. Ethan didn't suddenly become fearless, but slowly he stopped running. He accepted help when Laura's colleagues organized a small fundraiser for Megan's recovery. He stopped apologizing every time Laura offered to do something kind. He learned that love wasn't measured by how much pain you could carry without complaint, but by how willing you were to let someone share the weight. Months passed, Megan grew stronger. The baby learned to laugh. Ethan started taking fewer overnight hauls and more engineering consulting work, encouraged by Laura and surprisingly by Megan herself. You don't owe me your entire life, Megan told him one afternoon, her voice firm despite her lingering weakness. You already gave me everything. Now let yourself have something too. The turning point came quietly, the way the most important moments often do. Ethan and Laura were back near mile marker 112, working on a roadside safety outreach program Laura had helped design. It was a simple initiative, talking to drivers, handing out information, making roads safer one conversation at a time. As the sun dipped low, casting the highway in gold, Ethan felt a strange sense of symmetry settle over him. 5 years ago, he had stood on this stretch of road soaked in rain and fear, believing survival meant disappearing. Now he stood here in daylight, holding Laura's hand, understanding that survival had only been the beginning. He didn't get down on one knee. There was no crowd, no dramatic speech. "I don't know how to promise forever," he said honestly, "but I know how to show up every day, even when it's hard." Laura smiled, tears already forming. "That's all I ever wanted." They married the following spring in a small ceremony surrounded by people who had witnessed their journey. Megan held the baby. Laura's colleagues filled the benches. There were no grand declarations, only quiet vows spoken with the kind of certainty that comes from choosing each other after seeing the worst. Ethan never stopped driving entirely. Laura never stopped wearing the badge. But together they built something new, a home where help was allowed, a life where kindness was not something you gave away and lost, but something that came back multiplied. Sometimes Ethan still thought about that night in the rain, about how close he came to driving past. And every time he did, he held Laura a little tighter, grateful for the version of himself who stopped. Because one small decision had rewritten his entire future. If this story moved you, how did it make you feel about kindness and second chances? Do you believe one small act can truly change a life? If you enjoyed this story, please leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Tell us where you're watching from, and if this story touched you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today.